Welcome to the Deep Dive into Success podcast. Jason and Rebecca are ready to fuel your next move. Every insight here is a spark. Ignite change. Seize the moment. Take action today and shape your tomorrow. Check us out by listening. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe to receive notifications when new content is available.
Okay, let's get into it. We're doing a deep dive today into the an NEPQ framework that's Neuro-Emotional Persuasion Questioning. It's really about trying to transform sales conversion, moving away from that, grinded out numbers game.
Which is exhausting.
Totally. Yeah. And moving towards more of a strategic skills game. We've looked at a bunch of sources that tackle this kind of central puzzle in sales.
Which is?
Well, why can a seasoned pro and a complete rookie use the exact same script word for word, but get totally different results?
Right. And the consensus seems to be it all comes down to nailing those first 90 seconds.
Exactly.
And it boils down to understanding and overcoming this core psychological barrier.
Yeah.
Sales resistance. It's like the prospect answers the phone and their spidey senses immediately kick in.
Their survival mechanism.
Precisely. And they're listening subconsciously for two big tonality mistakes. First, being way too excited.
Which screams,
I need your money.
Yeah.
Basically, it sounds desperate, like a threat to their resources.
Okay. And the other one, the monotone robot.
Yeah, that just sounds generic, predictable, like every other telemarketer they hang up on. Both just trigger an immediate no.
So what's the right way?
The sweet spot, according to this framework, is a tonality that's collected, confident, and calm.
Calm.
That seems key.
It is, because calmness signals low personal stress. And our brains are wired to perceive that as competence, as authority. It suggests subtly that you don't need their business.
But you can solve their problem. That's a powerful distinction.
It really is.
And speaking of things that kill authority, the sources really hammer on avoiding those classic script mistakes, like asking, is this a good time?
Oh, yeah. Terrible opener, just hands up the exit ramp immediately.
Right. But maybe even more critical is how traditional scripts get hung up on this solution, the product or service, instead of focusing on the only thing the prospect truly cares about, the result.
And this brings us right to the core psychological idea here, frames. See, when you start a conversation, the prospect's default mental state is what NEPQ calls the cost-price frame, meaning they're just thinking,
how much is this going to cost me? Not just money, but time, energy, hassle. It's their defensive posture.
Okay, wait. If that cost-price frame is the default setting for everyone, is it really possible for just one opening question to completely deframe them? Or are we just sort of hiding the price temporarily?
No, the goal is a genuine shift. You have to interrupt that internal cost calculator. That's the deframe part. You knock them out of that defensive cost mindset, and then you immediately reframe them into the results-based frame. You anchor the whole conversation around the specific positive outcome they want. You shift their focus from the pain of potential cost to the pleasure of achieving their desired result.
Okay, so how does NEPQ actually do that? Let's look at the connection questions. Question 1 is called a familiar tone and end result cell.
Right.
You use a sort of subtle pause, a familiar tone, almost like it's a referral, which apparently makes them curious instead of resistant.
Yes, and crucially, you pivot immediately to the end result. So instead of saying you offer, financial services,
You'd say something like,
you'd talk about perhaps getting a higher rate of return so you could retire earlier. See? You're hitting the why, the emotional driver, right away.
got it. We're skipping over connection question 2 for now, which is more about their past efforts, and jumping to CQ3.
Yeah, CQ3 is key for establishing status.
This is the one that establishes the gap, right? It sets up what they call the status frame. You basically say you're comparing their current situation to where they want to be.
To kind of see what that gap looks like, using that word, gap.
Right, you're making the gap visible, making them acknowledge that where they are isn't where they want to be. You're defining their problem for them in a way.
Exactly. You're the expert diagnosing the situation. And this leads smoothly into the final qualification step, the neutral close.
How does that work?
When you talk about what happens next, you deliberately use low pressure, conditional language, words like if, might, maybe, possible next steps.
Why is that so important?
Because anything that sounds assumptive, like, okay, so the next step is, it triggers that feeling of being pressured, of commitment. Resistance flares right back up. Keeping it neutral lets them agree to move forward without feeling trapped.
That makes sense. Keep the pressure low. I also saw this interesting practical tip in the material. They call it the hot water hack.
Yeah. Sounds almost too simple, right?
Drink warm water before calls. How does that help?
It's pure physiology. Warm water literally relaxes your vocal cords.
Okay. And that leads to?
It naturally helps lower your vocal pitch slightly, makes your voice sound smoother, less strained. And a lower, steadier pitch is, well, scientifically linked to sounding more authoritative and competent. It's a tiny physical adjustment that reinforces that calm, confident tonality we talked about.
Simple but effective.
It all ties back to the main goal. Flipping the dynamic so the prospect is essentially qualifying themselves to you. You're positioned as the expert with the solution they need for the problem they acknowledged.
Right. Shifting the power dynamic.
And what really stands out across all this is how critical it is not to fall into chase mode.
What do you mean by chase mode?
Well, think about when a prospect says, look, I'm busy, can you call me back later? The average salesperson immediately goes, okay, sure, when's good? They start qualifying to the prospect, basically begging for a scrap of time.
So you lose status instantly.
Completely. You need to maintain that frame. You have the potential solution. They need to demonstrate they're serious about solving their problem.
That status flip seems to be the absolute core of it. Okay, so to leave you, our listener, with something to chew on. The material mentions something called the facial expression hack.
The idea that your facial expression actually influences your vocal tonality, even when you're not on video.
Exactly. So if that connection is real, what simple, maybe unconscious physical things like, are you slumping, frowning while you talk? What cues might you be giving off every day that are unintentionally lowering your status or undermining your message in important conversations? Something to think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us on this episode of the Deep Dive into Thriving Successfully. We hope you found a quick hack to take action on today. If this episode moved the needle for you, please take 1 second to hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. It helps us reach more people who want to start thriving. Our content is 100% based on listener requests. We want to cover the topics you struggle with. Drop your episode suggestions in the comments or send us an email directly at deepdive@lfeg.info. And the best way you can help us is to share this episode with a friend or colleague you care about. Let's build a thriving community together. Until the next dive, keep crushing your goals.